Welcome to the Old Brother Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith.
Little chill in the air, Dan. You know what that means.
Halloween Fest. It's Halloween Fest 2024. I've got for this Halloween Fest, Mike, I thought I would pull this out as a little tribute to the old man, the old skull and
Skull and
bones.
Bones.
This is a little inside reference, a little tip of the hat to the old man here at Halloween Fest. I wonder what he would have made it.
I have at least 25
Oh,
of
yeah,
those.
they're all hanging above the bar. Was Dad really, not that he was not a horror fan, but I don't think it was like a go-to genre.
No,
He didn't seek this out at all.
if I put Terrifier on, he'd have got the belt off.
Yeah, he would have been the paddle or
He
something
never
would
hit
have
me
come
with the
out.
belt, but plenty
Yeah.
of times he took it off.
So, anyways, there's a little tribute to the old man. So, Mike, Shaun of the Dead, we're doing tonight. Now, this
Right.
is as of this recording, we're just beyond the 20th anniversary of this film. It came out September 24th, 2004 in the United States. You know, I don't often do this, but I just want it right up front. This was now one of my favorite films of all time. I'd never seen it before.
Which is amazing.
This is almost a perfect film. This is a fantastic film. There's nothing you could say to
Right.
tear this film apart. So I would be, if you have anything negative to say, I want to hear about it.
I'm with you 100%.
1000%.
In fact, when they just released it in the theaters because of the 20th,
Yeah.
I couldn't get in. There was nobody close playing it. I would have had to go to downtown, and I'm just not that
And
dedicated.
it was probably in select markets like Boston.
But
wouldn't
it
come
for
here.
people, and and this is a 20-year-old film,
Mhm.
but man, nothing before it or since has topped it.
I'm sure that you're a student of him, and I'm not.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about Edgar Wright's work?
He's a pal of Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, the two main actors, and they did this TV show. That's like one of the original DVDs in my I have less than 20 DVDs left.
Really?
Space I held on to.
How long would you say you've had that?
Oh, at least 10 years.
So Space was a TV series in the UK from 1999 to 2001. It was a sequence in an episode of Space that sort of led to the
Yes.
germ of the idea for this film, right? Which you can probably talk about that.
Well, and the two characters are basic. First of all, Nick Frost and Simon Pegg in real life were flatmates. That's how,
Yes.
roommates,
Yeah.
flatmates.
Right.
So a lot of this dialogue and a lot of what they say, like when Nick gets Simon a beer, he always says, "Thanks, babe."
Mhm.
That's just from real life. And a
Right.
lot of, Edgar is also a buddy of theirs.
Mhm.
He was offered other directing jobs while this was out there. They had written this, they couldn't get it sold. He
Right.
decided to sleep on Simon's couch and let Simon pay his way till they got the movie made. He was that dedicated.
Well, let me back up because we've kind of started to give the tale of the tape, but of course, directed by Edgar Wright, co-written, I guess, by Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright.
Yes.
The cast, of course, Simon Pegg as Shaun, Nick Frost, you mentioned as his flatmate in this, Ed,
Ed.
or he's squatting in a sense at
Yeah.
Shaun's place.
Sells a little pot on the side.
Sells a little, yeah. Kate Ashfield plays Liz, who is Shaun's love interest in the film. She's fantastic. Lucy Davis plays a character named Diane.
But before
Yeah.
you go on, Lucy Davis had gained fame in the UK at this point and in the United States. I started watching the UK Office.
Oh,
As
yeah,
soon
right.
as it came out, I heard so much good buzz.
Right. Wasn't she the
Lucy-
receptionist
She was the
character?
receptionist, the Pam character that people would know from The Office,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
her name was Dawn.
Right.
And then Martin Freeman, who makes an appearance, very brief, I don't think he has a word of dialogue. He just kind of nods his head and
Yeah.
he's passing Lucy Davis. He was the Jim character.
And Martin Freeman is in a film that they did, The World's End, that Edgar Wright directed as well.
There's a
Is
trilogy
this the
behind me.
okay? So Mike is talking about the Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy.
And these are all basically the same 2 characters in different scenarios.
Right.
I got the 4K triple pack for 20 bucks.
Yeah.
Just Shaun of the Dead alone.
Is worth it.
And
Yeah.
the other thing I wanted to point out is people probably know Simon Pegg from the Mission Impossible movies.
Right. He came in at Mission Impossible 3 and then didn't show up again until Ghost Protocol.
A lot of people know that character. I think it's Benji is his
Benji, yeah.
name. I wanted to point that out while you were going through the cast.
Yeah, I was only gonna say Dylan Moran, who plays Lucy Davis's
Boyfriend.
love boyfriend in the thing,
Yeah.
but has a thing for Liz, as we find out. And then Bill Nighy, who plays Philip, who's just fantastic.
Now they
Um
pronounced it on the, commentary track as Bill Nye.
Oh,
So
really? No.
I'll just put
Oh,
that out there.
interesting. There
That
was a
was
lot of
Edgar
science
Wright
going
that
on.
said that.
We talk about Edgar Wright. So now this is a case where the directing absolutely serves the story in this
Mhm.
film. Whereas other, lots of other episodes on the show we've talked about, it's just there's no purpose, there's no point. In fact, we talked about that with Kinds of Kindness, although I sort of became a little bit more admirable of Yorgos Lanthimos and
Mhm.
his style and his work. Although in many ways it seemed like, okay, this is just like, directing for directing's sake.
Yeah.
Now the budget on this film is estimated around 6 million, and it's made, depending on where you look, it's made somewhere in the low to high 30 millions,
Yeah.
right?
And this latest release will add to it. Plus, there's a new
Right.
4K coming out. I don't know if it has anything new because I already have it on 4K.
Well, one thing I know, well, I already have the digital, which is how I saw this. But
Mhm.
I wanted to ask you about this again. We talk about this on the podcast all the time. But Rotten Tomatoes, 92% favorable from the critics, 93 from the audience, which is where I would expect it at least, right?
Yes, at least.
IMDb, the more reputable of the two, at least in our opinion,
Yeah.
Metascore 76%, Mike.
I saw that and I looked, and a couple of people, reviews I've never heard of
Mm,
tanked it. And all it takes is a couple of 20s to bring a
yeah,
98 to a, 70
right.
whatever. But that's clearly this
That's
this is the one time I'm gonna say Rotten Tomatoes has it right.
yeah.
IMDb has it wrong.
And this is a film I could go back and watch over and over
And
and
I
over
have.
again and see something I missed.
Forget Deadpool Wolverine. This had Easter eggs before people called them Easter eggs. There's
Yeah.
so many things in there. I mentioned the one about thanks, babe.
Now we didn't even set it up. Set up the film, Mike.
Yeah, basically this character Shaun, who works at an appliance store, is
Right.
basically having a bad day. And he decides he's gonna turn his life around and
Mhm.
get good with his girlfriend of what, 3 years, I think,
Yes.
and move
Yes.
forward in life. It just happens to coincide with an apocalypse that breaks out right under his nose, which leads to the shenanigans.
And I love, there's so many little random things that I wrote down because I was just as I was watching it, I was just like, "Oh, that's brilliant. That's
Yeah.
brilliant. That's brilliant." And Simon Pegg, first of all, make no mistake too. This is like a zombie romantic comedy,
Yeah.
and there's some really good acting going on in this film,
Yes.
especially from Pegg, who I think, his intent, after he got his degree
Mhm.
in, like, whatever, theater, literature, he was looking to be sort of a serious actor, I think, before what he did, which was brilliant, right? Which was this insurance policy where he starts dabbling in stand-up
Oh, I've never seen him do stand-up.
almost as a fallback position, to be able to kind of have a gig to be, yeah, you walk into a club, you get some mic time somewhere as an open mic.
Sounds familiar.
It sounds like
Sounds strangely
it might
familiar.
be something like this. Yeah. Could it be you?
I did a couple of
So
years of stand-up.
it did him well because of course, as he ends up sort of, writing and getting in this film. And then, of course, he's kind of known for this thing with Spaced,
Mhm.
which came first, of course, right?
Yes.
And if you watch Space right away, it's very much in the same vein, like the
Yes.
same. How would you describe this sort of brand of humor.
I think it's a buddy humor at its core.
But do you think there's something there's an English sensibility, right? There
Oh,
is an
absolutely.
it's like, Ricky Gervais with The Office we mentioned, and
Who makes an appearance in Spaced,
okay,
because The
right.
Office was big at the time.
Yeah.
If you've never seen the UK Office, it's so much better than the American. I'm sorry for fans of the American. I'm a fan too.
Which is great. Right, it's great.
He only does 6 episodes a season, 2 seasons, and then 2
Mhm.
specials. That's
Right,
it.
right.
And it made every episode that much better because the gag didn't go on too long.
Mhm.
The other thing I should mention too is Night of the Living Dead from 1968 by George A. Romero. This is basically based on that.
Well, it's weird because they also George A. Romero did Land of the Dead, which was,
Mhm.
like, 2 years, I think, after this came out, right? And he asked them to make a cameo in it, correct?
They
This
were
is
both released in
2006.
2004, and they told Edgar Wright, "We're gonna hold your film for 2 weeks while Land of the Dead gets released."
Oh, Land of the Dead, okay, 2005, okay, maybe I was looking
So,
at something else, yeah. Okay, so that would make sense if it was that close.
the funny thing, they gave George A. Romero an early viewing, like sometimes
Mhm,
we get screeners of movies. Well, they
right.
gave one to George. He loved it,
Mhm.
didn't even pick up on the fact that it was based on Night of the Living Dead. I
That's
found that
crazy.
hilarious.
That's crazy.
Talk about the
Used.
opening, how brilliant that opening is.
Oh, you're
When we
talking about the title
first
sequence?
Yeah, when we first come into the universe, what's going on?
Well, refresh me because I just
Well,
watched it.
it's basically people going through their everyday routines pretty
Right.
much like zombies.
Well, it's funny because that's what I was gonna mention. There's just, like, syncopation with the music.
Yeah,
It's all very choreographed.
but
Well,
they're
the
not zombies yet,
correct. So
but
it's
they really are.
Edgar Wright talks about this, how I guess there was some skepticism when they were getting ready to make the film about whether it would get made at all or whatever.
And they
So
had problems.
he crammed in all of this shit in that opening sequence. Simon Pegg's, going from his flat to the corner store.
Touch of Evil,
Touch of Evil, the one, no
long
cuts,
tracking
one
shot.
exactly.
It's brilliant.
And it's setting up all of this stuff that would come later, right? The guy's asking him for change. Cut to later on when the guy's a zombie and he's going up to him. Simon Pegg still think he's asking for
Yeah, he's
change.
got his head
And
down.
he's actually coming to eat him, and the like that was just so. First of all, it was hilarious, but it was just brilliant filmmaking,
Yeah,
and
that
storytelling.
was a film school moment.
Well, the opening isn't the opening. I guess that's literally the opening credits, is I think what you're talking about, right?
I think so. I just know the first thing you see the cashiers all in sync, like you said, to the rhythm,
Right.
almost as if they were zombies
Well,
before
there
the
were, but
apocalypse.
there were some that were, because I know there's one shot where they are literally kind of walking like Thriller,
Yes,
you
and
know.
all of those actors are from Spaced.
Are they? Yeah, that
Yeah, and
doesn't
they were
surprise
paid a
me.
pound a day to be in the
Uh-huh.
film, which is a callback to George Romero, who paid the actors in Night of the Living Dead $1 a day to be zombies.
Hey everyone, if you love movies, hit that subscribe button and join us for more amazing episodes on the Oh Brother podcast.
Don't miss out.
And don't forget to leave a comment and share with your friends. Well, it also in the beginning when, for example, there's a lot of, I don't know what the technique is or what you call this, but Liz and Shaun are in this tavern called the Winchester, right? Plays a
Yes.
big central role in the film. And it's now called, from my understanding, it's a pub called the Boogaloo, which hopefully, as of this recording, I will have visited the Boogaloo.
That's right. You're gonna be in that neck of the woods.
I will have come back from the UK by then. But so anyways, they're in the Winchester and Liz and Shaun are at the table and she's talking about, you got to get your life together. And, I want more out of life than this and whatever. And his roommate, Ed, is at the video game machine.
Yes.
Right. But there's things like where Liz says, what was the one? she mentions, I wrote it down. Hold on. Oh, she says it would just be nice if we could, and they cut to Ed and he says,
Yeah.
so, that kind of thing, right? The back and forth, but it's like the news. Talk about the montage
Yes.
of
They're
the
watching
news reports
TV.
of what's happening in the world.
Right. They're watching TV, and
Brilliant.
it's now broken out, right? The apocalypse is upon us. And Simon Pegg, his character Shaun, is flipping the remote control, and every time he flips, there's one or two words, and then it goes to the next
And
channel,
it's
one
like
or
a
two words, and it makes
newscast,
a perfect
and
sentence.
it cuts to like National Geographic, and there's like a zebra getting eaten alive, and then there's
Right.
a but you're right, the dialogue in each of those scenes that are shown makes one fluid dialogue about what's happening.
An increasing number of reports of serious attacks on people who are literally being eaten alive.
Exactly.
Right. There's people running around eating people, and
And the timing, it was just
Jesus.
brilliant stuff.
It made me think of COVID in
Yeah.
a weird way, right?
And
This kind of
also 28 Days Later had already been released 2 years prior.
which I've gotta see. I haven't
Yeah.
seen it, you
I
know?
mean, that takes a much more serious tone, but it's interesting, in Land of the Dead, the
Yeah.
original, they never use the word zombie,
Mhm.
and I think Shaun, it's the same thing, right? They don't ever use the word zombie. They call them the undead, or
I thought maybe in one of the news broadcasts they did,
it
but
might,
yeah,
but I know that other films, like 28 Days Later, took that as
yeah.
a kinda, "Okay, we don't do that."
It's amazing the arc of the film from an emotional standpoint. Like, you get everything in this. There's
Yes.
comedy, there's horror, if you will, which is the
Right.
central reason we're talking about it. There's drama, some really serious
Talk about
dramatic
that, because,
elements.
for people who might be Terrifier fans, why should they watch this? I don't wanna see a comedy.
Well, this is not blood and guts, but, if you like The Walking Dead, for example, it
Right.
would it would be in that vein, right?
There's
If again,
plenty
for
of
those that
eating people and cannibalism and
right, but it's not gratuitous by any stretch of the
no,
imagination.
no.
But there's definitely some graphic scenes.
And the Winchester, the
Mhm,
pub, also has a Winchester rifle
right.
above the bar.
Well, this is the brilliance of the writing was they only called it the Winchester because they needed a reason to have a gun over the bar because it plays a central piece in the film later.
If you go back, which I did, and watch Night of the Living Dead, which I have on Criterion, that's how good it is. He the lead character, this is 1968, the lead character
Right.
is a black male,
Mhm.
and he got harassed for
Yeah,
years.
you're just a few years beyond the civil rights movement at that point.
Exactly, and he actually uses a Winchester rifle to kill a couple of, wannabe
Mhm.
undead people, I
Right,
guess.
right, right. He did this other thing, which is using sounds that are in the actual scene, right? So, for example, the sequence where it's very choreographed to this Queen song that's playing on the jukebox.
Mhm.
And so, diegetic sound is like if the characters can hear it in the right, but it's also being used to score the film.
Right.
That's what it means.
Yeah, and, another thing you pointed out, Ed playing the, video game. He's playing it at home,
Right.
and Simon's telling him, or Sean's telling him what
Reload
to do. Go, yeah, reload, go to
on
top
it,
left.
on it.
He follows the same instructions on the arcade game.
And that's the thing, there's so many of those kinda callbacks
Right.
as the film goes on, it's so brilliant. I thought A Quiet Place too, and, some similarities there. But it's amazing, and the thing about Simon Pegg too, you think about this guy's career now, like, he hit the nerd trifecta, they say, where he's been in Star Trek, Star Wars, and
That's
Doctor
right.
Who.
That's right. He plays the, Scottish
Scotty.
character.
Scotty.
Scotty. Yeah.
Scotty, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
And
forgot about that.
we mentioned George A. Romero and the influences there, but yeah, I mean his bankability now with the Mission Impossible franchise. I mean, it's pretty phenomenal.
And don't listen to us. Take it from the BBC in 2011. Okay, it's been a little while, but
Mm.
2011, they did a poll
Mhm.
of best movies of all time, and there were
Yeah.
no categories. It was just give us your top 10 movies.
Right.
Shaun of the Dead came in 2nd, only to Shawshank Redemption.
Wow.
And
Wow.
then Quentin Tarantino
Mhm.
made a list of the 20 best films post 1992,
Yeah.
and he ranked Shaun of the Dead in the top 20.
Where did this rank in the year 2004, I wonder?
I tried to think back because at that time, I
I'm looking
used
it
to
up.
I was teaching at the time, and I would have Fridays off because my classes were Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday, and
Yeah.
every Friday I went to 2 movies. I would jump on the bus, I would go
Mhm.
downtown, see one movie, and then sneak into a second one, and I know I saw Shaun of the Dead there, but I just don't
Well,
recall.
it wasn't even in the conversation in terms of, box office
Right,
blockbusters or anything, but
right.
here's a rundown of the top 10: Shrek 2, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, Spider-Man 2, The Incredibles, The Passion of the Christ, The Day After Tomorrow, Meet the Fockers, Troy with Brad Pitt, Shark Tale, and Ocean's 12. So there's
Wow.
some heavy hitters that year,
Yeah,
actually.
those are big budget movies
Yeah, yeah,
that, and again, this is 2004, so
yeah.
I'd even wanna look up their numbers and see what, they did at that time.
It's such a great film. It's so enjoyable. I had no issue with this film whatsoever. It's almost the perfect film, like I
It
said.
it really is, and it's got something for everybody. I
It
think
does.
you get a taste of everything, and I'm trying to think of something I can compare it to, and I just can't.
Yeah, I mean, there's a funny sequence too. If you go on YouTube, you can see a clip of Simon Pegg rewatching a few of the sequences from the film. But there's one where Edgar Wright is rewatching and commenting on some of the clips of the film, and he talks about there's a scene early on where Simon goes back to that corner store. Now, the zombies are sort of taking over,
Mhm.
right? And he goes into the convenience store, and the owner's not present at the time.
No,
He's in
nobody's
the
at the
back room.
counter.
Right. He's talking to the guy, but he's not there.
Right.
He pulls out a Coke, or actually a Diet Coke, because Edgar points out he kind of thought it was funny how the character Shaun trying to get his life together. So one of the decisions he makes is to switch to diet soda. Like, that's a big deal.
Well, I think at first he had a beer,
Oh, did he really?
and then he switched to Diet
But when he
Coke.
grabs he turns and he starts walking away, and he does this little, like, he slips, and as the viewer of the film,
Yeah,
he's slipping in some blood,
yeah,
but the character doesn't pick up on it.
no,
And Edgar said, now, if you're a real study of the film, you might see, how good Simon Pegg's acting was, because there wasn't anything on the floor. He just ad libbed that.
right,
And I did look for that, because even I knew that little movement was so brilliant from an acting standpoint.
yes,
And sure enough, there was nothing there, but I mean, that's just 1 millisecond in the
right.
hour and a half that this film
And
is. It's
again,
so
that's an
enjoyable.
that's an actor's choice that he likely made on the spot because there were you do
Right.
see a zombie on the ground right near there.
Yeah, there's bloody handprints on
Right, but
on the
he's so
refrigerator
tunnel
or whatever.
visioned,
Right.
he misses all of the like you said, the guy now trying to eat him, he thinks, "Oh," he's like, "I didn't even have enough for the
Yeah.
soda, the Cornetto," whatever.
It's a shame on me for waiting 20 years to enjoy this film, but man, this will live in my physical, so when
Yeah,
that 4K hits.
well, I can bring you, like, a loose copy. I have this extra copy
Yeah.
because that has 4 commentaries on it, and they're all worth listening to.
Well, this was one of those that we thought we would lighten the mood on Halloween Fest and bring this
Right.
one into it, because, like I said, it can get dramatic at times, and there is some horror elements, but it's a funny movie.
It's also very, very clever.
It's a very smart film.
I
Absolutely.
mean, this
Yep.
is made by people who know how to make movies, and, I haven't really followed. I've seen Hot Fuzz and I've seen World's End,
Mhm.
but I haven't really followed Edgar Wright,
Yeah, nor have
or
I.
him and Simon still a duo. I don't know.
Well,
'Cause
he is getting ready to do an adaptation of the Stephen King novel that was already made into a film.
a
Riff
lot
on
of
you.
Stephen King movies wind up getting remade because he basically hates every first cut. He hated The Shining.
Oh, The Running Man.
Oh, The
So
Running Man.
so Edgar Wright is gonna be behind the camera for this reboot, I
What do
guess, of The Running Man.
Yeah, what do I say to you all the time when a movie I can watch this movie, I don't love it, I don't hate it, it's watchable.
Well,
I
now
always use The Running Man as an example.
did you see Baby Driver
I
with
did,
Ansel
yes,
Elgort? He
yes.
directed that too.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And he's doing there's a sequel coming.
There was a sequel
Mm.
that the studios wanted to be made,
For
and
this?
of Shaun,
No,
and
no.
they started to do it, and they were like, "You know what? We're
Leave
just
well enough
gonna
alone.
Yeah, we're just gonna ruin it."
Yeah,
It
leave well
and
enough
like you said, it doesn't get better.
No, no,
Just doesn't get better than this.
this is a great film. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's my
Do you have
favorite thus far.
Did I send you the trilogy?
No, just this. Yeah.
Okay.
I need the other 2 Cornetto films.
Yeah.
So anything else to say, Mike, about Shaun of the Dead on its 20th anniversary?
If you haven't seen it, I think it's a must for any film fan, period.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a horror fan, you don't have to be a fan of comedy, you don't have to be, you don't have to be an astute director, but
Right.
if you're just a fan of movies, this one's
Mhm.
gotta be under your belt.
It's gonna be up there, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you go, folks. It's another episode,
Does
a
this
Halloween
reshape your
fest.
top 5? Could this be a
Of
potential top 5?
Oh, that's a great question. Mike, hearkening back to our first episode ever, nearly 5 years ago with the top 5 films, it was all the rave at the time. It
The
could.
20 people that saw that episode
Could it
stuck around.
could it edge out Groundhog Day? I don't know, man.
Or
Oof,
Planes, Trains.
it is a brilliant it's
It
now those are fighting words there.
Yeah, I would likely put it in the comedy
Mhm.
in that vein
Yeah, yeah.
because there's so many drama and,
Sure, sure.
great films. But for Quentin Tarantino to say this is a top 20 film post 92,
It's pretty good cred.
that's pretty good. That's,
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
good. That's good, accolades. Well, and you've got 2 more from us, 2, thumbs way, way up, folks, on the Oh Brother
we
podcast.
couldn't be in more agreement
We couldn't be, no,
with all the
no.
times we've disagreed.
Yeah,
This one, we're right on the money.
yeah, and so we wanna hear from you now. So if you've seen Shaun of the Dead, drop some comments. Let us know what you think of it. We assume you love it. Why do you love it? If you don't like Shaun of the Dead,
Why?
yeah, I gotta hear
Got it.
that.
You can't just say it sucks.
In fact, if you want, I will send you some Oh Brother stamps and you can send in your written comments and we may read them here on the air in a future episode.
And
Well,
also, in that vein, if you have a, Easter egg,
mm,
your
yeah,
favorite Easter egg from the film, because there's so
yeah,
many,
lots of them. Yeah.
point that out.
Point that out. One thing I got to point out as we wrap, Mike, that's going to do it for another Halloween Fest episode of the Oh Brother podcast. I've been your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith, and we will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.